Everyone in this town loved him. He served coffee. He raised his granddaughter. He was the kind of man you trusted without thinking twice. But every night, when the lights went out, she came back. She sat where no one else could see her. She watched him, and she waited. Because some crimes don't disappear with time. Some ghosts don't want revenge. They want the truth. This is not a ghost story. This is what happens when she never leaves him.
At exactly 5:58 a.m., the lights inside Caldwell's Corner Cafe flicked on, 2 minutes early. Henry Caldwell liked being early. He moved with quiet efficiency, coffee machines warming, pastries set in the display, chairs aligned just enough to feel welcoming but never rigid. The cafe sat on Maple Street, a clean, ordinary stretch of road in a small Midwestern town where people waved even when they didn't know your name. Everyone knew Henry's. At 62, Henry looked like the kind of man strangers trusted instinctively. Soft gray hair, neatly trimmed beard, gentle eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He wore the same blue apron every day, washed and pressed, with his name stitched over the pocket in fading white thread. By 6:15, the first regular walked in. "Morning, Henry." "Morning, Tom," Henry replied without looking up. "Same as always." Tom laughed. "You know me too well." That was Henry's gift. He remembered. Not just orders, lives. Whose mother was sick, whose kid had a math test, who needed their coffee extra strong because they'd been up all night. The cafe filled quickly. Teachers, construction workers, nurses coming off night shifts. Henry greeted each one like family. When someone came up short on cash, Henry waved it off without making a show of it. When a young woman spilled her drink, Henry cleaned it himself, joking that the floor needed a bath anyway. No one questioned his kindness. No one ever did. At 3:15 every afternoon, the door opened again. "Grandpa!" Henry's face changed instantly. The day softened around him. Lily, 8 years old, backpack nearly bigger than her, crossed the cafe and hopped onto the stool by the window. Henry poured hot chocolate before she even asked, adding extra marshmallows the way she liked. "How was school?" "Mrs. Collins gave us a surprise quiz, but I think I did okay." "I'm sure you did," Henry said. Customers watched them with quiet smiles. Everyone knew the story. 5 years earlier, Henry's son and daughter-in-law had been killed in a car accident on an icy highway. The news hit the town hard, the funeral harder. Henry had stood silently at the front of the church, one hand on the casket, the other holding Lily's small fingers, as if letting go would shatter him. After that, Henry raised Lily alone. He packed lunches, attended parent-teacher meetings, learned to braid hair from YouTube videos. He closed the cafe early on school nights and walked Lily home, always holding her hand. Luckiest kid in town, people said. Henry just smiled. Evenings were simple. Dinner at the small kitchen table behind the cafe, homework, a chapter from whatever book Lily was obsessed with that week, lights out by 9. Henry washed the dishes quietly after Lily fell asleep. He checked the locks twice, not out of fear, just habit. Then he sat at the table for a moment longer than necessary, hands wrapped around a mug of tea he rarely finished. The house was quiet. Too quiet, sometimes. But Henry told himself that was grief. Old houses made noise. Old men noticed it more. The nightmares started months later. They weren't dramatic, no monsters, no blood, just driving, endless road, darkness pressing in from all sides, headlights barely touching the asphalt. Sometimes there was a sound behind him, breathing maybe, but when he turned, there was nothing. He always woke before anything happened. In the mornings, Henry shook it off, showered, shaved, put on the apron. Kindness, like routine, had a way of pushing thoughts aside. On Tuesdays, the cafe closed early. Henry cleaned alone, methodical and calm. He liked order. It kept his mind quiet. That night, as he locked the front door, something felt wide. Not fear, not yet. Awareness. Henry paused, keys still in his hand. The cafe was empty, lights dimmed, chairs stacked. His reflection stared back at him in the darkened window. For a brief moment, he thought someone stood behind him. Henry turned. Nothing. He laughed softly. "You're tired," he told himself. At home, Lily was already asleep. Henry checked on her, adjusted the blanket, brushed a strand of hair from her face. His chest tightened, not painfully, just enough to remind him how much he loved her. "You're safe," he whispered, though he wasn't sure who he was reassuring. Days passed, normal days, busy days. If anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed small things. Henry pausing mid-conversation, losing his train of thought for half a second, flinching when a mug shattered on the floor. "You okay?" someone asked once. "Of course," Henry said quickly, just startled. At school pickup one afternoon, Lily asked, "Grandpa, do you think people can come back?" Henry blinked. "Come back how? Like if they didn't get to finish something?"
Henry considered his answer carefully. "I think people leave things behind," he said. "Memories, love." Lily nodded, satisfied. That night, Henry stayed awake longer than usual. The house felt heavier, sounds carried. The clock seemed louder than before. When he finally slept, the dream changed. This time, the road ended. He woke with his heart racing, breath shallow, a name on the edge of his thoughts that he couldn't quite reach. The next evening, Henry closed the cafe alone. He turned off the lights one by one, the room shrinking with each click. As he reached for the final switch, he saw movement near the back wall. A figure, still, silent, young. Henry's breath caught. The lights flickered, not fully off, not fully on. And then she was gone. Henry stood frozen, keys digging into his palm. The cafe felt unfamiliar now, like a place he no longer completely owned. He forced himself to move, locked the door, walked home with measured steps. At the house, Lily slept peacefully. Henry watched her for a long time. The image of the empty cafe burned into his mind. He told himself it was stress, fatigue, the mind playing tricks. Because Henry Caldwell was a good man, everyone said so, and good men didn't have pasts that reached out from the dark. Henry stopped trusting silence. It followed him now, into the cafe, into the car, into the house. Silence waited between sounds, stretched too thin, like it was holding its breath. The first time it happened in daylight, Henry was pouring coffee for a customer he'd known for years. A shadow crossed the back wall. Not fast, not dramatic, just present. Henry's hand trembled. Coffee sloshed over the rim and onto the counter. "You all right?" the customer asked. Henry wiped the spill too quickly. "Yes, of course, just clumsy today." He didn't look toward the back again. He couldn't. He finished the order, smiled, laughed when appropriate. The cafe kept moving, and Henry moved with it, carried by habit like a man gripping driftwood. But he knew what he'd seen. That night, the girl stood at the end of the hallway. She didn't block the door, didn't reach out. She didn't need to. She was young, 19 maybe, dark hair falling loose around her shoulders. Her eyes were steady, not wild, disappointed, patient. "You don't belong here," Henry whispered. She tilted her head. "You belong to me," she said quietly. Henry slammed the bedroom door and slid down against it, breath tearing out of his chest. The house stayed silent. Lily slept through everything. By morning, Henry had convinced himself it was exhaustion. He lasted 3 days. On the 4th, he made the appointment. Dr. Samuel Brooks listened carefully, hands folded, face neutral. His office smelled faintly of antiseptic and old books. Henry described the shadows, the figure, the voice. He did not describe her face in detail. He couldn't. "Hallucinations under stress aren't uncommon, especially after long-term grief," said Dr. Brooks. Henry nodded, grateful for the word stress, something manageable. "I'll run a few tests," Brooks continued. "We'll start conservatively." Henry agreed to everything. As he stood to leave, the waiting room door opened. A woman entered first, her posture rigid, her eyes hollowed by years of disappointment. A man followed, older, quieter, his hand hovering near her back as if unsure whether to touch. Their eyes met Henry's, and for a second, just a second, Henry felt the same awareness he felt in the cafe, the sense of being recognized. The woman's gaze sharpened. "You see her too," she said. Henry froze. Dr. Brooks stepped in quickly. "Let's keep things professional." The woman swallowed, nodding. I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" Her husband guided her to a seat. Henry left without another word, his pulse pounding too hard to ignore. That night, the girl was closer. She stood at the kitchen table when Henry washed dishes. The reflection in the window showed them both. She watched his hands move. "She's asleep," Henry said. "Leave her alone." "She was asleep too," the girl replied. Henry's knees weakened. He gripped the sink. "You don't get to pretend anymore," she said. "You had your years." He turned. She was gone. Across town, Laura Harper woke with a gasp. Her husband, Michael, stirred beside her. "Another dream?" Laura nodded, pressing her hand to her chest. She was standing in the doorway again. Michael said nothing. He never argued. He had learned that denial didn't ease Laura's nights. Laura had seen her daughter for the first time a year after she disappeared, standing by the mailbox, then at the foot of the bed, always quiet, always watching. "She wants something," Laura whispered, and Michael exhaled slowly. "Then we keep looking." They had kept looking for 30 years. Henry's symptoms worsened. The girl appeared in reflections, in the rearview mirror while he drove Lily to school, in the darkened glass of the pastry case. She never startled him anymore. She waited. "She's not your punishment," the girl said one evening as Henry locked the cafe. "She's your deadline." Henry shook his head. "I've done good. I've helped people." "That was for you," she said. "Not for me." Henry began missing details, orders, names. Lily noticed first. "Grandpa, you forgot my marshmallows." Henry forced a smile and added 3. At school pickup, he found Lily standing alone. "She was right there," Lily said, pointing. "Then she wasn't." Henry felt the room tilt. That night, Lily screamed. Henry reached her room in seconds. The girl stood beside the bed. Lily lifted inches off the mattress, her limbs flailing in terror. "Stop, please," Henry begged. The girl turned to him, eyes unblinking. "Choose," she said. "Truth or silence?" Henry collapsed to his knees. "I can't." "You already did," she said. The pressure snapped something inside him.
The next morning, Henry walked into the police station and asked to speak to someone. He told them everything. The ride, the breakdown, the help she asked for, the decision he made in the dark, the place he buried her where no one would hear. He didn't cry. Across town, Laura woke without the familiar weight in her chest. For the first time in decades, the doorway was empty. Henry Caldwell's confession moved faster than he expected, faster than regret, faster than fear. Once the words were out, they didn't slow down. Dates, roads, the stretch of woods where the trees grew too close together and the ground stayed damp even in summer. He answered questions plainly, without drama, without bargaining. He signed the statement with a steady hand. The officers didn't raise their voices. They didn't need to. The room felt smaller with every sentence Henry spoke, as if the truth itself was taking up space. By noon, the cafe on Maple Street was closed. A handwritten sign hung on the door, closed until further notice. Neighbors gathered quietly, confused at first, then uneasy. Someone mentioned the police cars. Someone else shook their head, refusing to connect the dots. "Not Henry," a woman said. "There has to be a mistake." There wasn't. Across town, Laura Harper stood at her kitchen sink, staring at nothing. For the first time in decades, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt finished. Michael watched her carefully. "Do you feel it?" he asked. Laura nodded. "She's gone." They drove to the station together. The officer spoke gently, choosing his words with care. Evidence had been recovered, a location confirmed, a confession matched details no one else could have known. Laura listened without interrupting. Her hands didn't shake. She had lived with uncertainty for too long to be surprised by certainty. When the officer finished, Laura exhaled slowly. "Can we see her?" The forest was quiet. Yellow tape cut through the trees like a wound. The air smelled of damp earth and pine. Laura stood back while the officers worked. Michael kept his arm around her shoulders, grounding her when the world threatened to tilt. They didn't stay long. They didn't need to. That night, Laura slept without dreams. Henry spent his first night in a holding cell, staring at the ceiling. He waited.
For her, she didn't come. The silence here was different. It wasn't watching, it wasn't patient. It didn't breathe beside him. It was empty. In the days that followed, Henry learned what it meant to be unseen. The news spread, Maple Street went quiet. The cafe windows stayed dark. Letters came, some angry, some confused, some accusing him of lying for attention. He didn't read them. He asked about Lily every day. "Is she okay?" he asked the guard. "She's with family services," the guard replied once. "She's safe." That word, safe, settled over Henry like a verdict heavier than any sentence. Laura and Michael met Lily in a neutral room with pastel walls and mismatched furniture. Lily sat with her hands folded in her lap, too polite, too careful. Laura knelt in front of her. "Hi, Lily. I'm Laura. This is my husband, Michael." Lily nodded, eyes darting toward the door. "Are you here to take me home?" Laura chose her next words slowly. "We're here to help." Lily studied Laura's face. "You look sad." Laura smiled gently. "I was, for a long time." They didn't mention Henry. Not yet. Trust wasn't something Lily offered easily anymore, but Laura was patient. Michael stayed quiet, letting Lily set the pace. They brought coloring books, snacks, no questions, just presence. The court moved quickly. Henry pleaded guilty. There were no theatrics, no last-minute revelations, just facts and consequences. The judge spoke about trust, about harm that outlived the moment it was created. Henry listened without reaction. When it was over, he felt lighter in a way that terrified him. In prison, nights were short and loud. Henry slept anyway. The nightmares were gone. Laura and Michael filed the adoption papers together. They didn't rush Lily. They visited, they talked, they listened. Lily asked careful questions. "Do you have a dog?" "No," Laura said, "but we can think about one." "Will I have my own room?" "Yes." "Can I keep my backpack?" Laura smiled. "Of course." The first night Lily stayed at their house, Laura tucked her in. Lily watched her closely. "You won't leave?" Lily asked. Laura sat on the edge of the bed. "No." Lily nodded, satisfied. Later that night, Laura stood in the hallway, listening to Lily's steady breathing. She expected to feel something, fear, grief, the old familiar ache. She felt none of it, only relief. Weeks passed. Spring came quietly to Maple Street. The cafe remained closed, its sign untouched. People walked past it with their heads down, unwilling to reconcile memory with truth. Henry watched the seasons change through a narrow window. He never saw her again. One afternoon, Laura took Lily to the park. Lily ran ahead, laughing, her voice light and unburdened. Laura and Michael watched from the bench. "She looks like her," Michael said softly. Laura nodded. "I know." They didn't mean the same things they used to. That evening, as Lily fell asleep on the couch, Laura covered her with a blanket. Lily stirred, eyes half open. "Mom?" she whispered, testing the word. Laura's breath caught. "Yes," she said. "I'm here." Lily smiled and drifted back to sleep. Later, Laura stood by the window looking out at the quiet street. For a moment, just a moment, she thought she saw a reflection behind her, a young woman, calm, whole. Laura turned. Nothing was there. She didn't feel afraid. Some stories don't end with forgiveness. Some don't end with peace. This one ended with truth, and with a child who would grow up loved instead of forgotten. In a small house on a quiet street, Laura and Michael sat at the kitchen table, adoption papers signed, hands resting together. "We found her," Michael said. Laura nodded, eyes shining. "She found us." And somewhere far away, in a place that no longer mattered, Henry Caldwell learned that goodness built on silence eventually collapses. Justice, when it finally arrives, doesn't haunt. It frees.